What's up, brother? This is how to do a brake job. You want to start by taking off your hubcaps on whatever wheels you're going to do. I think you're going to do all four brake rotors, but you take those off and then you're just going to break the bolts free while the car is on the ground, because then the wheel can't spin. Like, just get them loose, so like a full turn each, and then you want to jack the car up, and you want to jack it up by, let's see, filming with the computer here. This is called the pinch weld right here. It runs underneath the whole length of the side of the car, and you want to stay on the front. You'll put the jack right back here, jack it up, and then put a jack stand underneath. Slowly let it down. Sometimes these will bend, but typically they won't. They're strong enough to hold the car up. Okay, so Doodle. So on this car, you can see that the front brake pad is worn enough that it started to eat into the rotor, which is what's making this bad sign around here. You know, this uneven surface. And here we've got our brake wear indicator, which is this little tab of metal. And when the brake pad wears enough, that starts to eat into the rotor as well, and that's what makes it screech. But it's too late for this car. So on any car, there's always going to be two bolts that hold the caliper on. And on this car, it uses a socketed Allen. On most cars, it's just going to be a standard nut. But what I like to do is I like to put the wrench on it, apply a little bit of tension, and then hit it with a hammer until it breaks. There we go. Go to the next one. It's going to be one on the bottom. And just remember, it's going to be righty tighty, lefty loosey. But when it's on the opposite, the same thing is going to apply. So you want to turn it clockwise to loosen the bolt, counterclockwise to tighten the bolt. It's kind of hard if you're working on the opposite, so make sure that you're not. So now this is free. And now one would ask, why do we have to work so hard to get the caliper off? Well, you see all these pits and valleys in the rotor. The brake pad has conformed to all these valleys in the rotor. Kind of if you would take a hot piece of corn and drag a stick of butter over it, the butter would conform to the pits and valleys. And then that's like trying to pull the butter to the side. You would have to break all those valleys. Which, butter, it's real easy, but you can imagine with the metal it's a little bit more difficult. So, just kind of go slow. You know, I like to tap the caliper a bit, but you might not want to do this because, you know, you end up breaking something, you got to replace the caliper. Now, the job is 2 times as hard. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth. You should have no problem with this. This is a weird caliper design. Okay, now on the car you're working on, and I would venture to say 80 to 90% of cars, you're going to have something called a caliper mounting bracket. So you've taken your brake caliper off, and your 2 pads are still here. Yours is going to look a little bit different. You're going to slide your brake pads out, and then back here, probably around here and here, there's going to be 2 more bolts, and you're going to have to loosen those bolts, and then a big bracket will come off. And I don't have a video on this, but you can watch there's a million brake job videos on YouTube. So you're going to take those 2 big bars off. You can use the ratchet and hammer method, or you can use a breaker bar. You know, that'll work well. On this car, the 2 bolts that hold the caliper to the spindle act kind of as the caliper mounting bracket as well. It's kind of a fucky design, but whatever. It makes my life easy, because now this rotor just comes right off. Boom. And you can see backside's not too bad. General rule of thumb is you replace rotors if your fingernail catches, and this top part is bad. Get rid of it. A quick note about brake lines. These lines like to dry rot, and you don't want to twist them, and you certainly don't want to just let the caliper hang by the brake line, because, like I said, if this guy tears and it leaks brake fluid, number 1, it's very dangerous. It's like the equivalent of cutting someone's brake lines. Number 2, you're going to have to open it up and learn how to bleed brakes and blah blah blah. You just don't want to fuck with it. So make sure that you're easy with this. Sometimes I take some wire and I'll hang it by this strut spring up here, but the easiest thing for me is to just let it chill right on that spindle right there, so that this is holding most of the weight. So now we're going to take this outside pad off. Remember, yours are going to be on your caliper mounting bracket. This one's a little bit different, but you know, you learn the difference and understand the difference, and you'll just have to work on your system a little bit with a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for here? Ingenuity. Okay, so that's a lot of pad material left, right? A little bit there. Nothing. Okay, now we're going to leave this rear pad in, and you can use a couple different methods to push this piston back into the caliper. Remember, we use this little guy, but you could just as well use a C-clamp. You're going to put the screw end right here on the brake pad, and then the other end right on the back of this caliper. Don't set it on the brake line. You know, if it's rounded off, you're going to have to find another way, put a piece of wood on there. But just put the C-clamp around it and then tighten it down. I'm just going to use this guy because it's right in front of me. So you shouldn't have any problems with your car because it's a new car, but generally speaking, you should not have to work hard at all to push this piston back into the caliper. If you do, you've got problems with the caliper, with the piston binding inside of the caliper, and that's how you get a stuck caliper and excessive brake wear, really hot brakes, etc., etc. But you see that I got to work a little bit to compress this, but I'm not straining, you know. And that's exactly how this should go. It should be real smooth, buttery, gliding back in. You know, if it binds up, you're doing it wrong. So we're going to go all the way down, and it'll feel like you'll just hit a wall. And I can't compress that anymore. That means that our piston is fully compressed. Can you see that? How it's flush with the rest of the caliper. So now I'm going to press these little bolts out. Again, you don't have to worry about this, but I do because it's a terrible design.